I look at L'Jarius Sneed and I think that's an aggressive football player. He's got a D-line mentality. I heard you. I like this acronym now. DAWG, D-A-W-G, disciplined assholes with grit. Is he
Yeah.
is he pretty much on top of the list there?
He's the he's the
Jeffrey?
he's the prototypical one.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how many corners do you find that can run, that can cover, and he's going to line up against the best receivers in the National Football League.
All right, so I usually don't have players from this school on or GMs from this school on or really anybody from this school on, but I want to introduce the first Maryland Terrapin I've had in a while, Dennard Wilson, the new defensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans. What's up, dude?
What's going on, Chris? You already threw out the hate already talking about Maryland. Because
Maryland.
I was going to take a dig at you and your Virginia Titans, man.
Dude, it is good to see you. It's good to see you in the big office where you were just giving me the rundown. What's the most exciting thing? Like when you hear that you're going to have the freedom to do a lot more, to call plays, to see every level of defense. What's the most excited you are about a particular area that you didn't get to do until now?
Well, it's just for me, it's like the organizational part about it. Hiring the coaches, getting them in here, getting everybody on the same page, because it's all about the chemistry from the coaching standpoint. And then when the chemistry from the coaching standpoint is on par, it transfers down to the players. So the organization being, putting in the scheme that I want to put in, doing the things that I want to do from that standpoint, that's been the greatest joy right now.
What do you think? Like, I know what kind of coach you are, but is something going to change? Are you the same guy just with more authority?
Yeah, I'm the same guy. I'm an energetic guy, still demanding. I still like to mix it up. The first couple weeks out, it was kind of funny because as a position coach, you go your whole career, working on your craft, being with the players day in and day out on the field. Then as a coordinator, now you have the position coaches doing that. So you master your craft. Then all of a sudden, when you can become a coordinator, it kind of goes away.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, I've been able to still touch them. So I get in the drills. Of course, my eyes are going to go to the DBs first.
Right.
But I'll go down there with the linebackers and I'll put my hands on them and, try to do some of the drills with them and demonstrate. So I'm trying to stay true to my roots that way so I don't get too far removed from it.
Right. Do you you probably missed that a little bit, mixing it up and being in there holding the pads and.
Yeah, it's different. Obviously being a coordinator in front of the room is different from being a position coach in the room with your players on a daily basis. So, maneuvering through that and still being who I am, I'm still working through that, but it's been fun. It's been a fun journey thus far.
So we got Frank Bush.
Yeah, my guy.
Yes, dude. This is awesome. Okay, so, me and Dennard have some crossover, and so if I reference anything in this podcast that sounds like it's got no background, it's probably just a shared experience. But Frank Bush, obviously linebacker coach, me and him go back. What do you think? What do you think is the key to putting together a staff? Like when you have that ability, and now it's time. Have you dreamed about that for a while? Like, have you played that game in your head, and now it's like it's here?
Yeah. So even when I was a young coach, when I was with the Rams. Frank Bush was one of my biggest coaching mentors. And he found, being around him, he admired certain things about me. And he thought that, and he even talked about it then, you're going to be in this position, right? And he didn't know when, and I didn't know when. But we always talk about if I get the opportunity to get a job, the first guy I'm going to hire is Frank Bush, right? And I did that because his wealth of knowledge, how he is with the players. He's always cool, calm, and collected, and he's thorough when it comes to football. So getting him was like a priority for me. But in terms of the other coaches, a lot of the coaches I already had crossover with. Mm-hmm. Went and got Tracy Rocker, who was in Philadelphia with me. Mm-hmm. Steve Jackson's one of the DB coaches. Steve Jackson actually coached me and was an assistant for me when I was with the Jets. And some of the guys that was already here, like Chris Harris, already knew about him. Chris Harris was a player when I was a scout in Chicago. So it was people that I've already had relationships with, and I already know the quality of work that they have. So that was a great thing, and I thought about that for years in terms of how would I put the staff together.
Wow, yeah, you do see some names. I'm getting to the age now where my friends are getting hired, and you look at the
Yeah.
staffs, and you're like, I know exactly who that is, or that guy played against me. Um, when it comes to meetings,
Hmm.
are when it's time to stand up and address the room, like,
Hmm.
are you more Greg Williams, Todd Bowles, Mike McDonald, or are you more Gannon? Like, where do you take I could see you being a little Greggish.
You know who trained me, right? So I spent most of my years in my younger years with Greg.
Yep.
So when I'm in front of the room, I control the room. We're going to talk about culture.
Right.
Everything's going to be put out in front. I'm a firm believer in you don't attack people, you attack the behaviors. So I don't care who you are in the room. If you're not doing what you're supposed to do, it will be said. You
Right.
know, it's funny, like being here with Jeff Simmons, right? Jeff comes out of me and say, "Damn, D, you're not going to sugarcoat anything," and that's who I am. That's me naturally, and I'm not going to lose that because I'm in a different position. But probably the greatest influence is Greg, and you know how Greg is when he gets in front of a room.
Yeah, well, it builds trust because I used to like the fact that Greg would shoot me straight, and I was
Yeah,
one of the guys on that defense, but he wasn't gonna sugarcoat it, as you put it, and so you can trust what he says.
yeah,
And then, like, when you see a coordinator jumping down Jeff Simmons' throat, like after he's out of his gap,
mhm.
then you're gonna feel like, okay, I'll take that coaching too because he's taking it.
Right. Everybody, if you're correcting the best players and they respect you and understand why you're doing it, most of the other guys start to follow.
Hmm.
And the guys that you're correcting, the leaders in the room, the better players, they police the other guys as well.
Hmm.
So they understand the expectations, all right, that you're setting forward. They understand what you're trying to get accomplished. So when the younger guys fall out of line or they're not doing it correctly, they start to correct them.
Yeah.
So it's building trust, building accountability within the room, and that's the way I go about every day. Trying to build the relationships and having a team that's connected.
When I was in Philly, you guys asked older guys to get up and talk about during the playoffs what we learned, and I always thought
Hmm.
it was funny because I was like, "Man, I just started taking classes like a year ago." But I'll give you my 2 cents.
Right.
I didn't win a lot in St. We didn't win a lot in St. Louis, but you learn some things quick.
Yeah.
Making runs, and you've been a part of some really great teams. And
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if I were to put you on the spot and be like, "All right, coach, now you tell me what you've learned in these Super Bowl runs or these deep playoff runs in Baltimore and Philly, like what would you tell guys about crunch time from December on?"
Well, first of all, it's technique and fundamental time. Like when you get late into the playoffs, like everything is scheme related early on, but everybody goes to the meat and potatoes. So you have to be thorough with your technique. Where are my eyes at? Where are my hand placing my first steps? And you leave no stone unturned, right? A lot of times when you get in the playoffs, you minimize what you do from a scheme standpoint because you allow the players to play faster. And then obviously, man, being on the last couple of teams I have, you got to have great quarterbacks as well. Being around Jalen, and the run we made in the Super Bowl, and then being around Lamar, those guys are game changers. So they give you an opportunity to win every time you line up and play.
Yeah, no question. When you look at this defense you got, it looks like are you gonna run like an odd front probably?
Uh,
Yeah.
you'll see.
Okay. Is you've said aggressive though.
Yeah.
I've heard you use that word. What is aggressive from
Well,
a player makeup standpoint, but also schematically, like finding that balance
when you say aggressive, to me, aggressive is a mindset.
mindset.
Everything about football and being an elite defense or elite offense, an attacking defense, it's about the mindset. It's when you line up, are you willing to play 60 plus minutes and try to break the will of your opponent? And within doing that, you can be aggressive and still play zone coverage, but it's how you teach in the front to get off the ball, right? You can be aggressive when you have timely sim pressures. You can be aggressive when you bring 4 or 5 to a side. So in terms of the scheme standpoint, I'll be selective when I blitz, but it's going to be for me trying to do it in the right situations. And then it also goes back to your team, right? Who do you have? Like if you have a dominant front, you don't need to bring a lot of pressure because they can affect the game by affecting the quarterback. So for
Yeah.
me, the aggression is all a mindset. And that's what we're trying to instill in these guys is the mindset. Are you willing to do whatever it takes to win, all right, without hurting the team?
And also outside of mindset, I would think schematically, aggression is not limited to how many people you bring.
Right.
There are aggressive coverages, there are aggressive
Yes.
decisions behind the rush that you can make, right? And
Yes.
you can play trap coverage, you can do all sorts of stuff, wrinkles that you throw in that some people might think are aggressive, but they're how
Right.
you do things.
And it also is how you coach the back end.
Yeah.
Right? Because if they're aggressive attaching to routes, when that quarterback back foot hits and those guys are connected at the top of the route, it causes a hesitation, a tick of time. So the aggression in coverage, all right, allows the D line that fraction of time to put the quarterback down or alter the pass. So just like you said, it's a mixture of how you do it. I'm not going to get into too much of a scheme on what I'm gonna do, but we're going to have an aggressive mindset. And you heard this before. We're going to live on the edge. We're going to play on the edge, right? And we're going to defend every blade of grass when we line up.
And then we're not going to apologize for competing.
And we're not going to apologize for competing.
So I look at L'Jarius Sneed and I think that's an aggressive football player.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of my favorite players in the league because every negative stereotype of a corner and how he might play on the field and how he
Yeah.
might operate, he just shatters it. I mean,
Yeah.
he's got a D-line mentality. I heard you. I like this acronym now. DAWG, DAWG, disciplined assholes with grit. Is he is he pretty much on top of the list there?
He's the prototypical one.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how many corners do you find that can run, that can cover, and he's going to line up against the best receivers in the National Football League? Like, you watch him in Kansas City, it doesn't matter who he's going against, and he's going to compete. You might get him, but he's coming back at you even harder. So, being able to get him, and even Cheeto as well, he's another corner that's aggressive, a tough-minded guy. So when you line up against receivers in the league, you got guys that's going to battle, that's not going to waver. They're not going to be afraid of the competition. And that allows you to have that aggressive mindset. So I'm excited about L'Jarius. He's a hell of a guy. He's very smart. He takes coaching, and he's had a lot of success. I mean, 2 years in a row, he got me out the playoffs and obviously in the Super Bowl. So it's good to get him on my team.
He made some big plays down the stretch. Is there one play that when you watched him make it over the last year or two where you're thinking in your meeting room, boy, it'd be nice to coach that guy? Well, I have one in mind, but what's your L'Jarius Sneed play?
It's the play in the AFC Championship game last year when Zay Flowers reaches out on the goal line.
Yep.
And you see a DB aggressively attack the ball, and it wasn't just good enough to tackle a guy. He got the ball off of him. And if, in hindsight, if you look back at it, if we score that touchdown, maybe the momentum was kind of on our side.
Oh, right? I agree.
He deflated the game. He deflated the momentum with that one play. And it's just not good enough to make the tackle. It's even better because it's all 11 versus the ball.
Yeah.
And as long as we get the ball off of you, that's what mattered. And he made a hell of a play. It changed the trajectory of the game.
I always think about that Tyreek Hill jam.
Yeah,
to me, in that play, like encapsulated in that play is his aggression, his competitiveness, and also his length.
Yes.
And another thing, the physicality. I love this, seeing a corner come down and tackle, and they had two of them there, right? McDuffie was a stud in the box, and and you've got that, and I think it fits the pieces there. I mean, because we start up front. When I think of the biggest bully in the league, and I mean this in a really good way, it's like Jeffery Simmons.
Yes.
And how excited are you to kind of take that out of the box?
Hey, man, just coming here, when you see Jeff play, first of all, I mean, he can dominate. He can dominate double teams. He dominates one-on-ones. But the best thing you see when he comes down the line, like his motor is relentless. And he can affect the game coming off the edge, and, man, putting the other pieces around him, to force one-on-ones, man, I'm excited about Jeff. And then just being around Jeff, the person, the leader, the man, that when you meet him and you're around him, you get super excited because what you see on film is the same thing you see as a person. And I just love being around him.
Yeah, he would. I mean, like he would have been a nice cultural fit. I feel like in the Jeff Fisher days.
Yes,
I
I mean
feel.
it's typical. It's
Yeah.
typical. He's a old school Jeff Fisher D lineman.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. He, we would have liked having him in that fucking
Yeah.
room. That
Well,
guy
shoot,
can play.
we had all of those other D linemen, including yourself.
I know, but having Simmons would have made everybody's job even easier.
Yeah.
Uh, so how about Sweat? This young kid, right? You draft
Yeah.
the big fella. How important is it to have? Not saying you're going to be running an odd front, but if you do have to have a zero nose, how huge is that to have that one guy who can play blocks up and down the line, can absorb double teams?
And you know how it is. You know the centers in the league are probably the smaller guys on the offensive line.
Yes.
And when you got a massive guy like that that's explosive, that can just get vertical knockback and play stone technique as a zero nose, it's hard. And if he's playing the shade, he's automatically forcing the double team,
Mm-hmm.
right? So now if he's forcing the double team, and now you freeing up Jeffrey to get one on ones,
Yeah.
so it's a benefit of having him. And then look, Sweat, he's a big man, but he's a big athletic man. All right. I've been around a lot of really good D linemen in the last couple years, especially being in Baltimore and then being with all those guys in Philly. And this guy, if he maximizes his talent in terms of athleticism, he's going to get better and better and better. And we just can't wait to get our hands on him. You know, Tracy Rocker, our D line coach, he's excited over the last couple of years. He's coached Fletcher,
Yeah.
Javon Hargrave, Jalen Carter, and all those guys. And, he's another piece that kind of fits into what those players are.
Yeah. And I think having an Arden Key is really important too.
Yes. Arden is, man, let me tell you, Arden makes you smile every day. I don't know if you had the benefit of being around him,
No, I've never met him.
but he's a very energetic guy. Every day he's going to make you laugh. But when he comes out to work, he goes 100 miles per hour. And he has freakish talent, and
Yeah.
he's all in. So I'm excited when we get the pads on and then as we go through OTAs and seeing these guys go out there and perform.
Well, how about linebackers? Because that's it's going to be. I still think linebackers are one of the most important positions in the league,
Yeah.
and especially the way offenses are running things now, having guys in the middle with good eyes and good
hmm
lateral speed.
hmm
Like what do you see in Cedric Gray and Murray, like bringing those guys in through the draft and free agency?
Well, I think like all right, going to get Kenneth in free agency. When he came out of school, highly touted.
Yeah.
He has all the size and athleticism.
Mm-hmm.
We're excited about him.
Yep.
We think that we're our biggest thing with Kenneth is letting him cut it loose. I don't want
Yeah.
him overthinking. I just want him to play the way he played in college, free him up and let him just go run and be the best athlete he can be. And then obviously, I trust Frank Bush and his coaching,
Right.
and that's huge. That's huge too. Cedric coming in here, he's been a Mike linebacker. He's ran the defense. He's energetic. He's downhill. He's physical. He's tough. Jack Gibbons, we can't sleep on him as well.
Right.
Jack came in and played his butt off last year, given the opportunity that he was given. And right now, all of them, obviously Cedric's coming in today, and it's numerous guys in that room that's getting better.
Yeah.
And we'll see how the competitions unfold as we start to progress and go forward. And ultimately, it's about putting the best 11 on the field. So all these guys will be given opportunities. Nothing's given. And every day you got to prove and reprove yourself. So the guy that proves himself to be the best version of himself on a daily basis is the guy that's going to play.
Who was a guy in the AFC North that kept y'all up at night?
Ooh, Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm.
Because when Joe's on, obviously he was injured, but Joe's he's a hell of a quarterback. That whole division is tough.
It is.
I mean, like the Baltimore Pittsburgh rivalry is something I've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in multiple divisions. I've been in the old school black and blue division with the Chicago Bears, being in the division with Philly and Dallas and everything. The Pittsburgh Baltimore rival is totally different.
Yeah.
The first thing they say, you're not a true Raven until you beat the Steelers. Right. So, I mean, that's huge. And it doesn't matter like how good the team is, what's your record. It's when you line up against the Steelers or Baltimore, it is a bloodbath.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's old school football, and I love it.
Hmm.
I love it.
Speaking of Joe, your head coach, Coach Callahan, coming from Cincy,
Hmm.
probably tell you a lot about what makes that guy tick. But you also have a pretty exciting quarterback that you're going to get to practice against and all that. And I think Will Levis obviously got slept on draft day. But I also think people are sleeping on Will a little bit right now. Like you hear the Titans are making all these moves, and you guys are as active as anybody. And some people might be like, "Well, what about the quarterback?" Well, the quarterback looked pretty good last year, and you give him some weapons. Like what have you heard? What do you see with Will Levis?
Well, obviously, like right now we're not competing against him. It's normally
Yeah,
offense and defense separate. But just being here, first of all, he's a big man. Like when I
yeah.
first met him, I didn't know he was as big as he was. But he's a guy that's always in our offensive coordinator or quarterback coach room.
Hmm.
He's searching for all the answers. And, I'll peek over there early on my special teams, and you see that ball come off his hand. It has velocity and pop.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you put the weapons around him. I think that Ran Carthon and Coach Callahan did a great job with the acquisitions. We have good running backs now that provide versatility. Obviously, you go and you have the receivers that we have right now. It's just giving Will the best opportunity to go out there and be and play to his potential. So I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to compete against him, and we'll throw some things at him to make him better from looks and coverages. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun going against him, and I think the sky's the limit for the young man.
Do you? This is one I never really asked the D coordinator. Do you ever like feel like you're throwing too much at a quarterback or something that's like you're getting ready for a game and you could take him out of his zone a little bit because you guys are
Mhm.
practicing so well or throwing so many things at him? Like,
Yeah.
is there ever a conversation like, hey, we should probably not throw the kitchen sink at this guy today, even if we're trying to get better? If it's good on good, we want to give him some versatility of looks. Or does
Yeah.
most of that happen in training camp where you're like, hey, I'm just going to dump the whole playbook on this kid? And then once you get into the season, can you tailor what you guys do to keep things kind of like stable for that guy?
Right. Well, that's all predicated on the head coach on
Yeah.
if they say, hey, let's pull back, let's have more coverages here. But obviously from scripting, offense coordinator, head coach, they can structure it for the quarter, to not pressure and do things like that. I'm from the school, like you say, of Greg Williams, who's from the school of Buddy Ryan. From a defensive standpoint, you throw everything at the defense, just like we used to do,
Yeah.
and you throw it at them, and you go and you see what sticks for the defense. Because
Right.
obviously, we want Will to have success, but we also have to get the defensive players prepared and with all the blitz patterns and coverages and the matches to do that as well. So for me, we're going to have an installation. We're going to get good at the small things, detail it out, and then as we go, we just layer and layer and layer, and then by that time, we'll be able to handle anything. He has great coaches over there, so I'm not worried about that. There's some great coaches in this building.
No question. When you script stuff, and you've noticed this probably like as the game's changed and like there's
Mhm.
less training camp and stuff. Like when I got in the league, it was 2 days, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Walked to school 6 miles uphill in the snow, all that bullshit. But now it's easy,
Hmm.
relatively speaking. And you look at it, and I know some positions take longer as rookies to come on. And
Right.
I'm sure you've kind of built up kind of like a way of doing things where you're like, okay, this position group is going to need a little bit more help,
Right.
in camp. This rookie's going to need more help because he's a DB or a nickel or
Mhm.
whatever it is. Which positions have a harder time transitioning, and which ones are you like, I can throw this guy in right away, or does it just depend on the player makeup?
I think it's a little bit of the player makeup, but then also sometimes it's the DBs, it's the back end. Because there's so many nuances in the back end. And the game, the pressure of playing in the secondary is so high. Because we know if the ball goes over your head, you don't have no chance to win.
Yeah, that's
So
it.
when you're playing multiple coverages or you're doing certain things, they have to have a lot of time on task to be able to execute it. But then that also goes back to the thought process of what do we have going in for today. The position coaches drills should reflect the install. So now, before the players go in and compete against the offense, they've already done certain things, all right, to freshen up, what they need to do. And then when we go and compete, they've already seen it or they
Right.
already did it. And
Right.
then the big thing with the secondary is, and I believe this as a philosophy, you can mess with rushing coverage, but you don't mess with the secondary. So once the rules are set, there's no chasing ghosts for me. So the rules will be the rules, and now you have to play routes and combinations through the rules that you already have. Because when you start to change rules and coverages, that's when you have mishaps, and
Right.
that's when
Because you're like,
explosive.
hey, this key is the same key. Well, you told me this, but now I'm seeing this key and it's
Yeah,
something else.
yeah,
And it be that,
no,
and that's to me the key to a really good defensive coordinator is like any question I ask you, you got to be able to tell me the why, and there has to be a why.
yeah,
Like there can't be any dead end questions. I used to be annoying as shit to Greg because I used to walk out of the D line room because if Woff couldn't tell you the answer, I'd be like, well, I'm going to Greg not because I'm fucking trying to suck up to Greg, but I don't want to be the guy
no,
that thought, hey, we had a free release here, we had a rule, and now
right,
Darren Sproles running down the sideline, but in this situation, I'm supposed to peel. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah. I
Because
think
someone was a little bit different.
the biggest thing is you eliminate the gray.
The gray,
If
exactly.
because you can't, football is black and white.
Yep.
And if you create gray and you're saying, hey, versus this team, this might happen and we're gonna do this, guess what? It starts to run over.
Mm-hmm.
And then bad things happen. Your rules are your rules. You
Yeah.
set your rules, all right. Now you set your rules and you live by your rules. And if you have to adjust,
You can do
which is
that.
this game is about, you adjust. But that's the new way you're gonna do it. And you're gonna move forward that way. And for me it's all about eliminating the gray.
And the hardest thing is you've got now multiple position groups that all are trying to work off the same rules, and there's varying degrees of like knowledge, right? Like a
Hmm.
guy in the front's not going to know everything about what's going on behind him, but some of
Right.
those keys overlap, and some of the
Right.
ways the Russian coverage works together. And if they're being taught one thing in a room and we're being taught something ever so slightly different in the D-line room, that
Mhm.
can blow up a defense. That can blow up a
Yes.
game, and so that's
Mhm.
the importance of getting on the same page.
Well, for me coming in this year, especially having a new staff and being a first time D coordinator, everything we put in, I installed it. And I wanted them to hear me say it
Mm-hmm.
first. How are we going to do it? And now the coaches are still writing notes, and when they go in the room, it's having one message and many voices.
Yeah.
So that's how we're going about it right now. Everybody's on the same page, but the players going to hear me say it first, so there is no gray. All right, and then when the coaches go in there, they just reiterate the message,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how we're trying to stay connected, stay on the same page, and eliminate the gray.
Are you still pacing when you install and talk? Do you
Yeah,
still pace around the
I'm
room?
I'm all over the place.
Yeah. So like
Yeah,
that actually that keeps players up in meetings. Is like I got to
yeah,
follow him too, man. Like
yeah,
he might
yeah,
be looking at me. So
yeah.
uh,
Yeah, I'm
I
all
just
over the place.
I was just wondering. Last question about the Titans experience so far was like how cool was it? I presume you got the call from Ran first, but like Ran and you crossing over and now being able to work together again. That's one of the things people don't realize is guys will say, "Hey, if I ever make it, I'm bringing you with me," or like,
Yeah.
and then to get that call and be like, "Hey, he was telling the truth." How cool was that?
Oh, it was great. When we were young, we in St. Louis, we always talked about, you know, progressing through the profession and had a lot of mutual respect. So going through this process, obviously the process was crazy for me. I had, multiple interests from other teams. But to get the call from Ran, to get the call from Callie and being able to meet Callie and sit down with Ran and see the direction in which they wanted to go and the things that I believe in, we just like all mutually aligned. And for me, after coming here and getting a face to face, after we were eliminated in the AFC championship game, to me it was a no brainer. It's just I felt at home. I have so many connections to Tennessee because of all the coaches that we were around
Yeah.
in St. Louis. So you already knew about, the Titans and the Houston Oilers. So it was just, man, it was a dream come true, and just fortunate. Two guys did it the right way, and both guys got an opportunity, And now it's time for us to make the best of our opportunity.
Last question. I'm gonna let Coach Wilson go. This is one that's a really important question. First off, are you an NBA fan? I think we've talked about the
Man,
NBA.
I love the NBA.
So let me ask you this. How many, if you could hold a combine for just the Tennessee Titans, in the wake of the Austin Rivers comments that 30 NBA players or more could seamlessly make the transition to the NFL, do you think it's more or less than 30? And which position kind of groups would you be looking at?
It's probably less than 30.
I agree.
Okay, because of going back to just the game, the physicality of the game.
That dog acronym.
Yeah, yeah. But now, I mean, from an athlete standpoint, you would think that guys could end up playing tight end, which has happened in the league over the
Right.
years.
But a lot of those guys didn't play in the NBA. So to me, it's like, shit, we should have more college basketball players.
Probably should. I mean, but you look at Ant-Man. I mean, he looks like a football player.
Yeah, he's on my
and
list.
he plays basketball like a football player. Man,
Yeah.
and let me tell you something. These playoffs, I've loved watching that young man play.
Oh, he's
unbelievable. He's exciting. I mean, he's going to be the face of the NBA soon.
But you can't be throwing tall like wings out there. They're gonna get folded. I said the other day, I was like, Bob Sanders he'd be taking a leg with him.
Yeah, it's a whole different game.
Yeah.
Athletic. If it was a spatial game with all of the tackling and physicality, I'll say yes. It might be more, but I think it should be a select few that can actually line up and dominate in a football game.
Yeah, the height thing's a little bit overrated. It starts working against you.
It works again because you can't bend.
I got another one, Russell Westbrook.
I think he could probably play.
Yeah, especially Austin Rivers is tripping. Austin Rivers, when they have us out there in that bowl in Earth City and it's 120 degrees, they're going back inside, dude.
Oh, and remember that smell out there?
The smell, dude. The burning trash. I'm
burning
surprised we're
trash.
Okay, dude. We're real success stories. I got a podcast and you're a D coordinator. We weren't even supposed to make it this far.
No. Yeah. We didn't win a lot of games, but that was some fun times.
We had fun, man, and it wasn't. I'm not, when you say, hey, we didn't win a lot of games and we had fun, some fans will be like, well, isn't that all it's about? Sometimes you don't have a choice and shit happens. But I always say this: when you go through hard times, you find out a lot about the people around you. And that D-line room that we had, I talked to those guys today. We got a group text. Those are friendships that last a lifetime because it wasn't easy. You know what I mean?
No, it wasn't easy. And then from a coaching standpoint, just to reiterate what you said, we lost because a lot of certain things happened, and we had an outstanding defense. But as a coach, it made me even better to go through the hardships because you know how it is when things get tough. Some people fold.
Yep.
And as a coach, you had to learn how to coach through the adversity and the losing aspect. And you don't change who you are. You double down on your core values and your principles. And whenever hardships come up now, it's not about reacting to it. You just adjust.
Hey, put this fucking thing on the wall. Adversity is an opportunity, coach.
Yes, it is.
You know what I mean?
Yes, it is.
And that's I think we're saying the same thing, which is just like, hey, you go out there to win, but sometimes the cards you're dealt. That's the thing about an NFL season. In some of those years, they don't stop the fight.
Mm-mm.
No one's coming at halftime when you're down 3 touchdowns or you've had to run back out there for sudden change 4 times and being like, okay, we'll just play next week. You're going to have to sit in 4-minute mode for now an hour.
Yeah.
We're going to find out.
Yeah. You find out who the war daddies are for sure.
That's old G-Dub.
Yeah.
G-Dub. All right. Well, fuck yeah. This is awesome. I'm so happy for you, man. I'm pulling for you guys. Can't wait to watch you play. And congrats.
I appreciate you, Chris, man. Good to hear from you. Good to see you, bro.